The following was recorded during the COVID-19 pandemic through Zoom meetings in accordance with local health guidelines. Hi, I'm Mike Maloney, and welcome to this special edition of the CSRM podcast with Dr. Greg Linville and Andrew Fouts.
Hi, welcome back. This is the second part of our special editions of Where's CSRM? Where is it going? Greg Linville here with, again, my good friend, Andrew Fouts, and Andrew is our associate producer of all of our OVF, Overwhelming Victory Flix, that we do. So welcome, Andrew.
Thanks for letting me back.
Oh, yeah. Couldn't do it without you. And we're flipping this a little bit where I'm kind of usually the interviewer, and Andrew's going to be doing more of that now. But we're talking about how the CSRM board decided 5 or 6 years ago that in order to stay strategically relevant and efficiently effective, that we needed to re-envision who CSRM was and where we need to go, what we need to do. And so last time we talked a little bit about that and the three streams. And just to recap that, the three streams were from where we were to where we need to be is leadership, executive director, all the other positions that we have. We wanted to expand the leadership, grow it numerically, but also then get people in their seat where they're really in their wheelhouse. The second one was to develop resources for other people, that we would develop the resources. CSRM would be the resource creator and provider for people who are really committed to go and reaching those who are far from Jesus through sports, recreation, and fitness in local churches. And then the third one, every ministry, every church needs to survive financially. And so we needed to develop our financial well-to-do areas. So there you have it. Those are the three streams that we're talking about, Andrew.
Yeah, and we focused a lot last time on one part of stream one, which was talking about our emeritus staff and the idea of completing ministry and development, staff development, mentorship, all those sort of things. We talked about our resourcing a little bit. We talked about some different options for fundraising through CSRM, which if you missed that, you can go back and listen to part one, or just go to csrm.org and we've got all the information there. But today we want to go a little bit further on the first two streams. And today we want to start with, in our staff stream, we already talked about the fact that we've added more staff. Me and my position did not exist 6 years ago. Well, I mean, I've known you. I couldn't believe it when I looked at it. I met you it would be about 11 years ago today, just about, would be when I walked into your office to find out what this whole sports ministry thing was after my tryout, which seems like way shorter amount of time, but also in some cases way longer. We've added my position. We've added some different positions internationally. We've promoted a couple people. Bradley Barnes is a good example of he's gone from GNP to staff member to now he is the continental director of Africa. We've done a lot of growth that way, but we've also done some shuffling around and some changing at more of the higher level. We mentioned last time that 6 years ago, Greg was still our executive director. Now, most of you know him as the director of resource development. I think we've announced on here before, we're moving through the transition period. We have another executive director about to come in. As David Waddell, our current executive director, shifts into another position. Greg, talk a little bit about this process, what's going on, and I personally am excited about, a lot of these additions, but, what have you seen and how do you see this all coming together?
Well, as we talked last time, it's based on our theological truths that Jesus to Barnabas, Barnabas to Paul and Peter, Peter to John Mark, Paul to Timothy Titus, that it has to be ongoing. And so this is what we're practicing. We're not just stating it, we're actually doing it. And the idea is that every one of us, at the appropriate time, appropriate ways, pass on leadership. And so when the board came to me and said, and I was glad for this, we need a new executive director. We want you to stay involved, do some things, connect the past to the present and future, but we've got to get some new folks. And as we talked about last time, that we're complementing. We're not competing. We are completing, not competing, other people's ministries. And so one of the things that's really overlooked in churches or ministries of any kind, and that is if somebody has been there longer than 5 or 6, 7 years, typically it's difficult to find the next person because it's so established in one direction that the next person just can't ever do what the other person did. And we see this all the time. Well, he's not like pastor, or she's not like, and we have to really understand that it needs to be in transition. And so the CSRM board has come to the understanding that a 3-year interim is not a bad thing. And we have had the best 3-year interim. And even though the board took off the title of interim from David Waddell, because they didn't want anybody to say, well, we'll just wait till the real guy is announced, then we'll deal with CSRM. David has been the real guy, but he's made it known, the board has made it known, everybody's made it known that come September of 2021, he'll not be the executive director anymore. And we've gone from that to then naming a new executive director. And another principle there is that they came from us, not to us. And that whoever the new director is needs to have CSRM as their native tongue. It's not a learned language. It's not a second language. And so we've got in Dan Stoker somebody that is all of that. He gets local church sports ministry. He did it. He's been a senior pastor, and he has developed a $1 million plus facility at a church, envisioned it, built it. He understands it. And this was a rec facility, sports facility, fitness facility. He's done sports ministry himself. He's been a coach. He's been a college football player. This guy gets all of that very much, but he also gets the fact that as the senior pastor, what it means to work with the sports minister at a local church. He gets it in a lot of different ways. This is not a second language for him. And also he comes from us, and that he's been on our staff for 2 years. It's not just that he wasn't named as the executive director 2 years ago. He came on as our director of our small church initiative, but he went to the CSRM conferences. He's been part of us all through these years. He's come from us, not to us. He speaks our language. So he will officially become our executive director come this September.
And that's something that we talked last time a little bit about how we don't want to just go and tell people this is the theological, philosophical way of doing things, but we want to model it as well. Most of you are aware of David Waddell's story with John Longworth. This is what David does. He's told me before he's the worst person to hire for a job because he's always going to end up hiring his replacement and leaving within a few years because the other guy's doing it better. this is what he does. He finds people that are already there, brings them under his wing, helps develop what God's already doing, and then just hands it over, and he quietly takes whatever role is needed next.
And David has been a master of this,
Yeah.
because there's a fine line between having nothing be done in the 3 years of interim. I'm just an interim. I'm not going to make any. And keeping the thing moving, keeping the train chugging ahead, and yet not going off the rails, so to speak. David has done this better than I imagined, and I thought really highly of him when he came on, but he's exceeded this. He's exceeded my expectations, and that's not a slight. I just said he came on, and I was really excited. I really believed in what he was going to be able to do. But even with my high expectations of him, he's exceeded that. It takes a very, very rare person that is comfortable in their own skin and say, this isn't about me. This is about Jesus and his church. And so we just really thank David for what he's done. And then Dan to come along and work with them.
Yeah. One more thing before we give David too big of a head here as he listens to this. One thing, and this is something that, we're hoping is still the case, and we fully expect is the case even with as Dan comes on, is that one thing that David also is very good at doing is, as he's developing these people, he's developing them to be able to do the exact same thing of finding people to develop. We just celebrated John Longworth's 20th year at Germantown Baptist. But even though he's been there for 20 years, it's not going to be like a typical 20-year, somebody that's been there for a long period of time situation after he leaves, because John already has people in place that people recognize that are already handling certain things, are doing things to where even though he's been a 20-year, 10-year pastor, it's not going to be this huge problem for the next person coming in that, like we've talked about already, we typically see from long tenured individuals within ministry, because he's already developing the next generation of leaders to take over for him. David's been doing that here within CSRM as well with Dan. And to speak to you a little bit, you've been doing the same thing. You brought me in. I was a student under you for a long time before I got involved with CSRM. Dan was a student under you, and now he's taking a role that you held for a long time as well. And we fully expect him to handle it, without any issues, because of the fact that we had people in front of us age wise, and, using the imagery of Hebrews 12 ahead of us on the track, that have shown us how to do this. And it's a very important thing, and it's a testament to both you and David, as well as to the model that CSRM is trying to promote.
Yeah, I thank you for that. It takes all the people, doesn't it? And what's the theological foundation? It's the Barnabas, Paul. Okay, now let's take a look at that. Now we have to understand in the Bible that there are narratives, and the narratives tell us what happened in history. Now, what happened with them is that they had this huge split. And part of it was Barnabas wasn't willing to let the young whippersnapper step out and do all that he wanted to do or should be doing. And part of it was that Paul couldn't wait till the old guy got off the horse and went back and retired. And they had that split. And now God wasn't defeated. They had two missionary teams going out now, Barnabas with John Mark and Paul with Silas. But we look at that narrative, and now we compare the didactic of the scripture and say, should we do what they did? Should we have these splits? Should we have these untenable times? Or should we, no, what should we do? And just because they did it in the New Testament doesn't mean that we're supposed to do it. We're supposed to evaluate what they did. And so we're really trying to pass that on as best we can. That's our theology. And then we move into our philosophy. And then the methodology is take the 3 years, pass it on. And for a guy like you, that's chomping at the bit, that could be hard. And for me, that could be hard to let go. But we have to be willing to do those things. And when we do it, we're stronger and the church is stronger. And that's what we're hoping that we can pass on, not just in words, but also in reality.
And that's something that, that's part of why we're so excited about the board's announcement of Dan's hire, is because we fully expect that those types of relationships are going to continue, they're going to grow, and they're going to continue to develop. Real quick, we've got about four minutes left here. We'll dive right back into the resourcing. Greg, you have another book. This is book 4 or 5 coming out of the ologies. Is it 4 or 5?
I have to think about it.
I know I do too.
We started in the ologies. These are the theological truths books. We started with ecclesiology. What's our theology of the church? Then the second one, we talked about soteriology, which is what does it mean to be saved, and how can our local church ministries actually work to bring disciples, go and make disciples. And then the third one was missiology, and that is to go, to get out there. And so this is the third one, and that one is at the press, so to speak. It's actually being released as we speak. It's in the mail, literally, being shipped. And now we're writing the fourth one, which is Christology, the Christ of sports outreach. And 10, 20 years ago, I just would never have imagined that we would have whole denominations that are supposedly based on the Bible that would say, Jesus is a good teacher and he is one way to heaven. When he said, no one comes to the Father but by me. I'm the only way. And so Christology, our sports ministers at local churches, they are really being inundated with people who are saying, I don't know if I really believe this, that Jesus is the only way. Jesus is God. And so, the ologies give us the foundations. And so hopefully the Christology book will be out in late 2021, but the one that's coming out right now is on the mission of sports outreach.
Yeah, depending on when you're listening to this, you can either still pre-order the book currently on the CSRM store. If you're listening after release, then you can go to the CSRM store and buy it there as well. And then we also have a couple other books that are being written at the moment. Really, one that we're really excited about, and even that already is, at least for us in the resources department, kind of helping us restructure and reshape, is a book by Vicki Byler talking about disabilities and how to do ministry with that, especially within the sports world, but not just exclusively. A lot of exciting things happening resource-wise. We don't want any of you to miss this. You can stay up to date on all of that either on the Overwhelming Victory Facebook page, which if you just go to Facebook and search Overwhelming Victory Resources will pop up, or you can go to overwhelmingvictory.org and you can find all the information there as well.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is the series of books, and the board envisioned initially 12 that would be in this series that we call the Institutes of Sports Outreach. That's the overall series title. We started with the Christmanship, which was kind of an apologetic for sports ministry, and started in on the theology. And then we went right away to that level 2, that philosophical, the philosophical principles. Mm-hmm. And then the ology books, and these are all being written kind of simultaneously, so that the ologies that's what the philosophy part of it, that those are all premised on those theologies. And then the methodologies, what do we do? And so Vicky's book that you're talking about, Greg English is involved and a few other people. We're so excited, and it's called From Barriers to Belonging. How do we help people that have a disability? They're not disabled people, but they have a disability. how can a church really reach them and minister to them and with them and have them then become ministers to others? That's there. Of course, our own P.F. Myers with his sports ministry for the world, that this is all part of this series. We're starting some preliminaries with even folks in other countries that are talking about how do we create missional sports communities to start this, to plant a church or to grow a church. All these books are out there: how to do youth sports, how to do adult sports, how to do fitness ministries, how to do outdoor camping, all kinds. These are all in this series that we're producing, and so we're passing on. That's part of what we're doing with OVP, the Overwhelming Victory Press. But I'm also very excited about what you're involved in and the OVR, and the OVR is Overwhelming Victory Radio. But let's go there a little bit. You tell me what we have time for and where we need to go.
Yeah, so real quick with we kind of skipped over. There's also Overwhelming Victory Flix, which is what those of you that are watching this video, you already obviously know all about it because you're watching it. But we have a lot of video resources. We're re-recording and updating some of our older ones. We're re-releasing some older ones. You can go to our YouTube channel. It's all there. They're on the Overwhelming Victory Facebook page as well for a lot of them. We instituted, this is one of the things I'm most excited about actually, was that in the midst of COVID, because we had our theology, philosophy stuff already in place and we knew where we were going as far as the 3 streams, we were able to actually add programming in the midst of COVID. The Tuesday Talks is a big one that we have. It's a roundtable discussion that we have monthly with international experts on different topics. Dr. Linville, Greg English, and soon to be executive director Dan Stoffer all host that. Stouffer, because he corrected me the other day. It's Dan Stouffer, my bad. And then in addition to that, we've also expanded into Overwhelming Victory Radio, which we've teased a little bit throughout the CSRM podcast in the past, but we are actually getting ready to start launching our second generation of OV radio podcasts, some that are coming from outside, some that are being produced right here. The Ministry Misfits podcast that we introduced last time is hopefully going to be out here in the next week or so, if not already. Our own David Waddell and John Longworth that we talked about before are in the midst of trying to work one out together as well. Jamie Balcom is still working on one. If you want to talk about mentorship, like we talked about before, the one that's already up is The Call of a Mentor, which is from Dwight and Angela McDowell. And all they deal with is talking about how do we mentor kids. They interview their kids and talk about their mentoring experience, their sporting experience, as well as mentoring ministry couples through marriage and everything else. So those are some exciting things. Hopefully you guys are excited to hear about what we're doing here at CSRM, the direction that we're going with CSRM. And Greg, thanks for coming on here, doing all this, for all the work you've put in the past and all the work that you're going to continue to do.